Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys sticking around towards the end. I had 650 miles in the car today and wanted to make sure to include Fort Collins, but on my way here, I made sure to stop in Pueblo. So right on the way from Holyoke, of course, it makes sense. When you're a statewide candidate, things are a little bit different as far as the travel goes, but that's what it takes. To run a campaign that's going to win in 2026 as a Republican, got to do a little extra. So I'm giving it the 200%, and I appreciate everybody else sticking around here and giving me the 200% as well for a few extra minutes. Let's talk about what this race represents. Secretary of State, Republican nominee for Colorado. Thank you very much for that honor. This race is our opportunity to roll back a lot of things, to go back to the good old days, start doing things old school, and to remember a time and a place when elections actually provided peace. Seems like it's been a long time since that was the case. One of the first elections I remember when I was just 7 years old, that was not the case. It was a great celebration for me because my birthday got to extend an extra 2 weeks. But the consequence of that was your 2000 election also extended an extra 2 weeks. And the confidence, the faith in our election process began to dissolve. That was 26 years ago now. And we have not seen things improve. In fact, we've seen the political conversation get worse and worse over time. Less bipartisanship, more divisiveness, and unfortunately, the dehumanization of the other. Both sides, accusing the other of being immoral, of failing to live up to basic standards of humanity, of Americanism. And as we look through all of history, we see that same trend of dehumanization unfortunately lead to some of the greatest tragedies we've seen in history. And so how can we reverse that process? We need to find out what's changed in the last 2-3 decades and start to reverse those changes. Not all change is good. Thank you, Obama. We need some change to go back. We need to not reform, but to restore. Yes, the Restore Britain, that's a great theme. I think we need some Restore America. We don't have thousands of years of history like they do, but 250 years, if we could reset back to that 250-year mark, the 1 year mark, that'd be really good for us. But obviously that's not possible. We don't have that time machine. So how can we do that? At least for the last 30 years, the changes that have taken place, which have left us feeling less safe, less connected, less in touch with our neighbors, less in touch with our high school friends, our family members who have different political perspectives than us. That used to never be a problem. A little bit of contention over Thanksgiving, but ultimately that's only just because the election was 2 weeks ago. The rest of the year was not a contentious place for political division within families until we started to see more of these changes to our elections. And that culminated in 2020, really. And it hasn't improved since 2020 at all. So how can we improve this? A simple reset. What was it that we did that gave us such a consensus on the methods of the elections that we used to have? It's my belief that somewhere between 51% and probably about 90% of people should agree on the method of the election. We'll never get much more than 51% agreeing on who we should elect. But determining how that 51% is determined in the election process should be near consensus. And we'll never get 100% of people agreeing on the method. But there used to be a time when the majority of people agreed, and that has shifted down towards 50. And of course, we have the tyranny of the majority. In a democracy, we have that, unfortunately. And so that majority is saying, we are going to use this method of elections. I don't care what the rest of people think. But they're sacrificing something important in that process by disregarding the opinion of a large segment of the population. And anything more than 10% should be included and work towards appeasing, for sure. And when we had that 90%, approximately 90% or so, agreement on our elections, that's when we did one-day elections, in person, with voter ID, paper ballots, hand count, old school. This is a simple method.
Amen.
Yeah, so thank you. It's simple. It's not complex. We don't need to run around and jump through all these hoops just to create the illusion of security when we've undermined the foundational principles. And of course, the principle of accessibility is important as far as our Colorado Constitution, Article 2, that says free, zero cost, right? And open, meaning if you want it, you can get it, elections. That's what we're guaranteed through the Constitution, Colorado Constitution. But the United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, also guarantees us the Republican form of government, which means representative, which means we need certain pieces of security in place. And we cannot pursue this false ideal of convenience and ease and access at the cost of security, the cost of confidence, at the cost of peace. And we've lost that peace in the United States of America, and in Colorado in particular, thanks to Jena Griswold, with the doubts that's been sowed into our election. When after an election, half the population accuses the other half of cheating, and the other half accuses the first half of being sore losers. Both are dehumanizing attributes to cast upon a group, and it'll flip, and it'll go back and forth. And it has been going back and forth for the last 20, 26 years. So we need to get to a place where there's no longer this opportunity for these accusations. The perception of being fair is as important as actually being fair. And it is possible, yes, it is possible, that the machines work. Possible. Likely? I don't think so. When you have that much power concentrated into one place, I think it's too good of a thing to steal. Imagine all the diamonds on display in the world right there in one place, and you've got Dominion's firewall protecting it. Probably going to get breached a time or two. The difference between a heist of jewels and a heist of elections, it's not the first one in that gets the jewels, it's the last one out that gets the election. And so what we're seeing is, it doesn't matter how many people hack it, and it could be a large number of groups, different groups that are hacking our elections, they're entirely vulnerable to the last one out. So I don't know if the first one in gets disappointed when he sees the results that he changed get changed again, and he has to go back in and try to fix that again. I have no idea what's going on between those hackers competing in their own right for the crown jewel, the sovereign jewel of power of the United States and of Colorado. But I'm sure it's an interesting battle that they're having to fight out. But we don't need that battle. We don't need to even be exposing our elections to these vulnerabilities in the first place, especially on the verge of the birth of artificial general intelligence. You can see how it's affecting our lives, how it made my sign for me, how it designed all of that, how it designed most of my marketing, my language. It's not giving this speech, I can promise you, this is a human talking now. But it also drove me here in my car. So it involves many aspects of our lives. But there's one thing that should be sacred and set apart and should not have a red carpet rolled out to AI to come and manipulate and influence and control. And that's our elections. We need humans electing humans counted by humans. That is the key. We need to close the circle. Amen. Because we will either be sovereign over ourselves, we will either govern ourselves, or technology will govern us for us. And many people will be eager to cast off the responsibility of governing their own lives, to bring in an artificial parent to tell them what to do. It's great when my phone tells me what the next meeting is and it automatically plugs that into my navigation. I appreciate that. But I still want the power to be able to delete that out of my navigation and go to McDonald's instead. And when machines are our masters, are the sovereigns, when we lose our sovereignty and we give that up to the machines, we won't have that choice or option. And that's a funny situation, but apply it to any other of the autonomous decisions that we make in our daily lives. That liberty being taken from us and handed to a machine, we don't need that. And we'll have AI influencing many aspects of our lives more and more moving forward. But if we're going to remain sovereign, we need to ensure that it's not in our elections. So that's what I'm doing here. Please donate, wileyforcolorado.com. And I've got some envelopes. All the signs are free. Take as many as you can fit in your neighbor's yard, please. And yeah, follow me everywhere.
I would like to add something.
Yes.
Thursday, I I was at a 55 plus community speaking with voters because I'm running for HT 51.
Wonderful.
And it was fascinating because out of the 16 people there were, I think, 4 people who they were like questioning, why did they get a Democrat primary ballot? Because they were certain that they were registered as unaffiliated, and where was their other ballot? And so it was disturbing that these people, they were adamant. I know I registered as unaffiliated. There was one gentleman who's like, I know, I'm registered as Republican. And we had a great PCP there, I can't remember his name, I think his name was David, of 402, who he had the computer there, and after I left, he was helping everybody looking stuff up. So I find that very concerning. I also find it concerning that for the unaffiliated, they've now this color coding, like, oh, if you decide to turn in, I don't know what the colors are,
It's
Democrat,
orange.
it's orange and, what's the other color, purple or something?
I think it's
I just
green,
like,
but I
that's
can't
just like,
remember.
that's just like so ripe for like, oh gosh, we don't want any of
We're
the
gonna
purple.
lose these
We're
ones.
gonna
So,
lose these.
yeah.
You're saying that they didn't get a Republican ballot also? Cause I guess if
Well,
they're
Right,
How
no,
does
unaffiliated,
it-
they get both.
they knew that they were registered as unaffiliated, so they didn't know why do I only have a Democrat ballot?
They
Well,
shouldn't
no,
have
Where's
if
voted,
the other
you're,
right?
one?
if you're registered as unaffiliated, you'll get a Republican and a Democrat
But
ballot.
they only had,
But
they
they-
only
she's
did
saying
send.
you didn't get that
They
though.
come in the same envelope, and this is something
Yeah.
that Ben and I've been hearing for years. My husband ran for county commissioner, and for 5 years, we've been hearing, I still hear as chair in this community, in this county, and also from Weld County at events that I go to, that people get their registration changed all the time. I just had 2 people call in this week. One was an unaffiliated man that his registration got changed back to Democrat, and one was a Republican woman and her registration was changed to unaffiliated. And the majority of the time, Nancy, to answer your question, what I think is happening, my personal opinion is, it happens when they redo their driver's license, when they move to a new neighborhood, when they get married and change their last name, when they move in from out of state and they have to register, they register, and if they are not specific in saying, I am a Republican, this is what I am, it automatically puts them down as either an unaffiliated or a Democrat.
Yeah, and many that they thought that they were unaffiliated. So
Right.
they're like, I'm like, well, you should have received one of each.
Right.
But they only received a
Right.
Democrat.
But
And then
it's
the envelopes are
something that's
color-coded.
happening frequently. I shared it with Wayne
Williams.
Williams, and he got on the phone, this is a couple years ago, I shared it with him, what's happening in Weld County. I talked to probably 10 people that had their registration flipped. And so he got on with the clerk over there, and I don't know if it ever got totally changed, but I hear it more now in Larimer County and less from Weld County. So what we do is we tell people, you have got to check your registration every year. That's just our mantra here, is you've got to check your registration every year. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is right now. The other thing that I think is disconcerting is the fact that there is no more secret sleeve for the mail-in ballot.
Oh, yeah.
Your mail-in ballot used to go into a secret sleeve, which needs to be eliminated completely, because a mail-in ballot is not a mail-in ballot, it's a absentee ballot. That's how they're registered. Once you fill it out, if you don't go down there and turn that in and get a new ballot and vote in person and put it into the machine yourself, then if you are filling out a mail-in ballot, it gets registered as an absentee ballot. Because that's how they were started, was absentee ballots was what mail-in ballots started as, and they never changed it. They just relabeled it to make it more palatable, but that is absolutely an absentee ballot. Crazy.
What would you guys price your vote at if you were to sell it? Now that's illegal, so please don't do this. But take, for example, in 2020, Donald Trump was offering $1,000 stimulus checks, and Biden was saying, I'll give you more. And so they were throwing out different numbers, let's say $1,000. But really, It's a joke I'm trying to make, and the point is your vote's priceless. The way that you're registered affects your vote and whether or not you get the correct ballot. That's a priceless mistake. And because there is no dollar amount that could be assigned to that, infinite damages, there's zero consequence
Right.
for the people who are causing these crimes to be committed. Disenfranchisement, violations of civil rights, it's criminal acts which are taking place.
So what will you do as Attorney General?
No,
he's
as
Secretary of
I mean, Secretary of State, sorry.
Go to law school and then become Attorney General. That's the plan. Step one, delete the whole voter rolls. We shouldn't even have doubt in people's minds whether or not it was changed on them. They should just know it's gone and they need to go back in and register to vote again. And if we're able to modify the laws from that point forward to identify ways to remove people who should not be on there and safeguard those people who should be in the correct registration as they intended it, then we can keep it in place. Otherwise, we need to systematically wipe the rolls on a regular basis. I'd say at least every 2 years, but possibly annually. Now, the only thing I would accept in place of that would be a blockchain system for our voter rolls, to where when these changes take place in the middle of the night, unexpectedly, that's recorded. You know how that happened. You know who did it.
They don't have that now?
No. What I'm talking about is the system of cryptography that's used with Bitcoin, with Dogecoin, Litecoin,
No, the block.
Ethereum.
Yeah.
And so that blockchain is a database system, and it's used primarily for monetary systems, cryptocurrencies, and unfortunately central bank digital currencies. But the government's impulse on using this breakthrough technology should not be, how can I expand tyranny through central bank digital currency? It should be, how can I, well, never will be, but when I get elected, it will be.
Well,
Transparency, accountability, security, immutability. These are the principles that the public record should provide, whether that's deeds, business filings, or the voter record. Birth certificates, death certificates, got to help clerks with those too. The voter record needs to be unchangeable by anybody except the voter themselves. But
We don't have blockchain
If-
security.
So they benefit from a central bank, digital currency. That's because it gives them total control.
and I'm talking about the Fed,
Yeah.
nothing Colorado based,
Right,
but yeah.
but the voter rolls, they benefit from it being totally corrupt and compromised.
Yes.
So they have their cake and they eat it too.
Yes, let's reduce security where it's important for liberty, and let's increase security where it's important for tyranny. Well said. And that's what we're experiencing now. Whenever they can find a tool, which cryptography is a tool, they apply it for the purpose of tyranny instead of liberty, unfortunately. So we need to push back against that impulse and bring this technology for the purpose of liberty. I call it the liberty chain. And we're going to use the liberty chain to break the chains of tyranny and to chain the government instead, to bind it, so that we trust the government, doesn't deserve our trust, but we have no choice. So we have to trust the government. We have no opportunity for the verify. I want to add that verify. So any trust that you put in the government is earned through the use of a system which can be verified. And that's what we need to do for the voter rolls, for all the public records generally. My job is 80% elections, 15% public records, and 5% charitable gaming. Got to take care of those nonprofits too. But that 15%, that's important to me. And while I want to take technology away from our elections, we need good technology, effective technology in our public record system.
How much of what you would like to do is gonna be dependent on the legislature passing some bill to allow you to do it? Or is it that what you would like to do, you don't need to worry about, that you have the authority to do it?
It's a mix, unfortunately. There's some that I could do through rulemaking and interpretation of the law as it is. But that's very limited. Maybe 20% of what I'll be able to accomplish is there. The other 80% needs to come from the legislature. And I will have staff members dedicated to working with the legislature on passing bills. And that's what Jenna Griswold has done. She's implemented these terrible rules and then forced the legislature to pass them into law. For example, in 2022, when she did the fake recounts all across the state, and I sued your clerk and every other clerk in the state except San Juan, They do hand counts, less than 1,000 voters there. But every clerk we sued because they did fake recounts. What they did is they rescanned the ballots back through the machines. The law requires under Title I, 10.5, 1023 A and B, as it was then written, that you do a hand count comparison to the machines. They denied that. Jenna Griswold denied that. She pieced together the different rules that she wanted it to look like, sent those out, and ordered the clerks to rescan. Well, in 2023, they went back and changed the rules, Title I, 10.5, 1023 A and B, to say rescan. So she made her illegal recount legal after the fact. Gotcha. So we need to work with the legislature to roll back that rule, roll back mail-in balloting, roll back the automatic voter registration. The fact that the DMV database commingles with the voter registration database is terrible for rural voters in particular who have a P.O. box. Yes, they have a physical address, but not in this century or any century has any mail ever been delivered there. I think FedEx might be the only person willing to try. So the issue is they collect their ballot at the P.O. box in town, and they drive an hour to town to get that. But all of a sudden, they change their ID, they update their motor vehicle registration or ID or something, any of those things that were mentioned, and their address gets switched on them. From the P.O. box to their physical address, their ballot's undeliverable and they're removed from the voter roll. Boom.
That's intentional, isn't it?
Sure seems like it. When the majority of the state of Colorado is rural people,
Right.
and wait,
And they vote red.
which, there you go. So whether intentional or negligent, it's a civil rights violation and needs to be prosecuted. And I've talked to Pat Doty out of Cheyenne, Kit Carson County. I was in Cheyenne Wells, Kit Carson County, and they have an issue there with this exact problem. And she quit as clerk in 2022. She's like, I'm done, no more, because of these rules from Denver just putting her in a corner where she can't even serve her constituents anymore. The tyranny of Denver must be held to check. And it's going to be rural communities like that who stand up and say no more. Because, well, Denver might have a large population. They can do no good or harm to the Republican cause. It's the Republican counties which will either shoot themselves in the foot or stand up and say no more. And so that's why I've been focusing my campaign. I've been to Larimore a number of times, but I consider this an outlier county, a border county.
Larimore's purple.
Yeah, and there, if you look at that map there, it's like a little bit of blue and then red. So it's that red who can activate and outvote the blue all across the state of Colorado. We show up to vote. Here's how it's done. Pueblo told me, and I didn't drive to Pueblo just for this information today, but it reminded me of that. When I first did my 10 days around the state tour, the middle stop was in Pueblo, and what they told me, I'm like, I'm going to share this everywhere I go, other than Pueblo, because they already know it. So I didn't talk about this earlier today, but I need to tell you guys what they did in 2024 to get a 92% turnout. 92% turnout for Donald Trump. Pueblo shifted red. Every other county in the state shifted blue. Pueblo shifted red. And it's simple. Human touch. They hand address the envelopes to every single registered voter in their county. And 92% of them answered the call. They sent those envelopes out the same time the ballots went out. People check the mail. They get a stack about this big. They throw all of it away because it's from PACs, from campaigns. It's got Joe Biden's auto pins on the addresses. All these problems. And, oh man, you guys are ahead of the curve.
1,400, well, this is Rob Woodward.
Yes.
100%.
Okay,
We've got almost 1,400 hand addressed,
Good.
ready to go.
okay.
We're working on it.
That is amazing.
I love hearing what you're saying because it's like, let's do it.
It-
Yes.
And those postcards, that's a really cost-effective way to do it. What we saw in Pueblo was they had envelopes and a letter in it. And the letter talked about the ballot issues, Protect Kids Colorado. That's a good ballot issue to put there right at the top. And then all the down ballot candidates, please vote for these candidates. And so while they throw everything else away, they appreciate the human touch. And they pick up that card. They pick up this envelope, which is hand addressed, and they open it, and then they fill out their ballot with that sitting right next to them and turn it in. If we do that in all these counties around the edge of Colorado, Denver doesn't stand a chance against us. If we get 92% Republican turnout in the Republican counties with 92% Republican already, that's going to make the difference. Most Republicans, they don't show up to vote in their small counties because it doesn't make any difference to them. They're going to have a Republican county commissioner either way, right? But they're not thinking about the influence on the statewide election or the statewide ballot issues. So the more we can hammer those things, the better we'll do.
That's good.
And I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
James, I love you sharing that because I have volunteers that I've asked if they're doing it. They're like, what good does this do? I don't know why I'm doing this.
Tell them Jim told them to.
That's what,
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
The
Very
human
nice.
touch
Nice to meet you
is
too.
so